Greetings, this is Dr. Strangelove. Today I'm taking a look at online gaming and the subject of empire. To what extent does playing military first-person shooter online games, video games, to what extent does this activity lead to the incorporation of the individual into the ideology and belief system of empire? Does gaming turn people into rabid supporters of the American effort for the war on terrorism? Does gaming turn us into neoconservative supporters of ongoing warfare? Does gaming convert the gaming community into the tools and the pawns of American military imperialism? That's a question for us today.
Do military-style games serve a military agenda? It's a fair question because games that involve first-person shooters, military online video games, have received the support of the military, are often designed with military advisors, and are receiving considerable attention from military organizations, and are even used to train military personnel. So we can't disconnect the playing of military games with the war on terror and with the society that is in one way or another in a constant state of warfare. The following explores the political dimension of online gaming. Do military-style video games serve a particular agenda? In particular, do they serve the agenda of empire? Military games that we play today occur in a context, and that context is defined by two realities. The reality of American empire. There are military empires today, and the United States is the largest of those. And the West's relationship with the East. The Middle East has been the focus of American economic and military interests since the end of the Cold War. Well, American politicians will never use the word empire to describe the United States. American foreign policy experts and American neoconservatives in particular will celebrate the fact that America is an empire engaged in imperial exercise of power. The neoconservative Max Boot, for example, describes the United States in these terms: U.S. imperialism has been the greatest force for good in the world during the past century. Here we see the celebration of empire and military force in the United States as creating a force of good. This is a definitive characteristic of the neoconservative thinking. So when we're looking at video games, we're looking at something that's played in the context of empire and in a context of a struggle over the definition of America and the definition of war. To what extent America's efforts are for the good of the world as opposed to for the good of the United States. To what extent they're an exercise of democracy or an exercise of empire. And to what extent video games lead to the video game player being incorporated into the ideology of empire or taking up a resistant position to the notion of empire and its goals. The paper that I'm looking at today, entitled Electronic Empire, Orientalism Revisited in the Military Shooter, by a scholar by the name of Johan Hoagland, I'm almost certainly mispronouncing that, and published in the International Journal of Computer Game Research, makes an argument to which I mostly disagree with, but he does make some compelling points about the relationship between gaming and the military-industrial complex, and it's a relationship that can't be dismissed because there is obviously a industrial, economic, and military relationship. From the perspective, the authors say, from the perspective of the gaming experience, the Middle East remains a space where Americans can participate in an everlasting war on terror. Through reducing the Middle East to a perpetual frontier within this game space, war is effectively transformed from an extreme and unusual measure to a state of normality. War becomes something that is normal to the game player. In other words, the authors say, in the military shooter, warfare is performed by American soldiers in the Middle East. The warfare that is performed by American soldiers in the Middle East ceases to be a politically problematic and expensive confusion of resources and instead appears to be part of the natural order. And here's the key conclusion, one which I do not agree with. The author claims that in the end, this effectively conveys to the gamer that continuous warfare lends safety and cohesion to society rather than destabilizing the world. So the conclusion, and also the assumption here, is that video game playing these first-person military shooters, will turn the gamer into an individual who assumes that continuous warfare creates cohesion and safety in society instead of destabilizing society. That's another way of saying that video game playing will lead to the support of efforts such as the war on terror, continuous warfare, or any war in general. That's quite a broad, sweeping claim by any measure. The authors go on. By rendering a virtual Middle East as a frontier inhabited primarily by male terrorists where the American military can engage in a cleansing and perpetual war, the world finally begins to resemble one outlined by George W. Bush shortly after 9/11. This, the author contends, is part of something that has been described as the military entertainment complex. We can't dismiss the notion of a military entertainment complex. It's a simple empirical reality. It does exist. These games are made to the benefit of the American military and with the help of the American military, and sometimes they are products that are specifically made, designed for, and used by the American military to recruit young. The author continues, from this perspective of critical theory, the military entertainment complex allows both the American and the global citizen to consume, and through this consume, purchase a military identity, while at the same time presenting a sanitized, bipolar, and fundamentally Orientalist, very negative position, image of military violence conducted in the Middle East. Again, the gamer is locked into one point of view. My argument against Johan Hoagland's conclusions and assumptions about the video game is that he argues that the video game ensures that only one interpretation, only one response is possible, and that is the response and interpretation that's going to lead the individual to side with American empire and military efforts. And that's very similar to old arguments about media from over almost a century ago, 70 years ago, that assumed that the individual was a dupe, completely overwhelmed by the media, and inevitably led into one conclusion. It's never quite that simple, and our experience at the Tactical Gamer community is quite clear that there are multiple interpretations to these games. People experience them from multiple angles, and that this type of largely semiotic analysis of the game meaning that's derived from individuals who do not play the game, have not participated significantly in the game, and do not take into account game players' own experience is often just off. This has been Dr. Strangelove, commenting on the meaning of online military games and to what degree game players become caught up in the military-industrial complex and absorbed into Americans' empire and ideology of constant